The Colorado Buffaloes need a huge win over BYU, but there's a problem. The injuries are starting to pile up. How will that impact them? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda. Move and be moved. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of our coverage because we got you covered from head to toe. And joining me today is Mr. AP himself from Denver's 104.3 The Fan. He runs our socials. He also does our postcast over here on Locked On Buffs, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Broncos. He keeps himself busy. He's a busy guy in that Denver area, and I'm happy to have him with me. AP, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, man. A big fan of yours from afar. Happy to do a little crossover episode. I usually listen to you on my way up to Boulder, see if there's anything that I'm missing, and you do a great job. And happy to be a part of today's episode and talk a little CU football.
Yeah, it's going to be some fun because I think Colorado's in an interesting state of the program, and we're going to talk about the injury problems and how it could impact their chances against BYU. We're going to talk about sort of their flaws and how BYU's strengths are Colorado's weaknesses, which doesn't usually bode well for one of the teams. And then we're going to talk about the keys to winning later, but let's dive right into the injuries. So I'm going to go full teacher mode right now, and we are going to share our screen. For those of you who are listening, don't worry. We will read it out loud as well. We have the injury report up, and let's just say Colorado's is looking very lengthy, AP. Let's start with the people who are out. You have RJ Johnson in the corner, Terrence Love at safety, both running backs to Kaden Taylor and Simeon Price, Phillip Houston, the offensive lineman, Samuel Kunalola, who I don't think has played at all this year, which has been quite disappointing, Tafik Thomas, and Gabriel Lightfoot. And then you're also missing Anquin Barnes for the first half because he had a targeting penalty against Wyoming. Doubtful, Makari Vickers, who is also another corner, TJ Branch, the safety, and Kyle Carpenter, the corner. So I'm looking at this list. And also there is one big injury for BYU, which is Sione Moa, the running back, who second leading rusher on the team, but they still have LJ Martin. AP, you look at this list, it's very extensive. Which one stands out to you the most and which one concerns you the most?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different names up there as well, but I think just because of what we saw from the offense, against Wyoming, and it is against Wyoming, so, let's take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I'm looking at this rushing attack for CU. I mean, Simeon Price has been a standout for this Buffs offense, along with Kaden Taylor, who's made some impact as well. And remember, the last couple of years with 2-12 on the field, they just had no semblance of a run game. And it seems like they've been able to establish that a little bit throughout the course of this season. So you're losing some bursts there. So I would probably look at the running back room. Part of that has to be because what kind of game is Pat Shurmur going to call? I know that's a big conversation amongst Buff fans as well. And so, you have Dallin Hayden, who I don't believe has played this season. I know he's been injured for a majority of the year. So, hopefully he'll be ready to go and give you some reps. Obviously, Hayden with the team last year, so some experience there as well. But, Simeon Price seems to be the guy that we've talked about a lot throughout the course of this season with his explosive plays. That dude's got, turbo boosters for feet with how fast he runs. So I'm looking at the running back room myself.
Yeah, the running back room is concerning. I do think Dallin Hayden got some garbage time reps against Wyoming, but he has not been the guy that Colorado was not, I won't say thus far, but he's not what they had dreamed of, getting the Ohio State transfer, right? I think they assumed he'd sort of be that lead back right away, and it just hasn't been that. I'm looking, and this isn't even an injury, but he's on the report. Anquin Barnes out for the first half, and he's that big guy up in the middle, 310 pounds-ish. He's huge. The Alabama transfer has really found his footing this year. Right? I think Colorado's been really happy with what they've seen from him. And missing him for the first half against a team who, LJ Martin's averaging 8 yards per carry. So they're probably going to try to run it down Colorado's throats. And missing your best player in the interior is concerning. I think they're going to have to rely on Jaheim Otis, which hasn't really been, I would say, the investment that they put into him, they have not got their ROI. I think it's safe to say through 3 games, a lot could change, but they haven't got what they were hoping for out of Jaheim Otis. And obviously when you see videos of coaches talking to him, or I guess he's not a coach, Gilly the Kid, a friend of a coach, telling him like, hey, the coaches think you're the best player, but you don't care. That's some red flags were raised for me back then. And then also another injury that really stands out to me We have multiple corners out, right? RJ Johnson's out. Makari Vickers is doubtful. And in my eyes, when I see someone's doubtful, I'm like, okay, so they're not playing. Like that is pretty much my thought process is like, okay, so Makari Vickers is probably not going to play. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on Tion Parks to step up. I think Colorado is going to have to turn to some younger guys there. And Bear Bachmeier is a true freshman quarterback, but if BYU could sort of scheme open throws and easy throws for him, he can make the throws with the best of them. He's got a big arm. He's a confident kid, and I like what he sort of has done through 3 games, because BYU, they haven't asked him to do much, but he hasn't messed it up. And I think when you're a young quarterback, that's pretty much all you have to do. AP, any other things that stand out to you on that injury report?
Yeah, obviously, we talk about the running backs, just like their defensive line as a whole. You've got 3 guys, Samuel Ukunola, Tawfiq Thomas, along with Gabriel Lightfoot, that are listed as out for this game. And obviously defense, I think has been much better this year, at least out of the gate, like up in the trenches. Like they weren't able to get some pressure at times the last couple of years. And frankly, to your point, with BYU's running back, essentially getting within spitting distance every time he touches the ball with a first down, you're going to need some dogs, as Coach Fromm likes to say up front there. So you're going to be down 3 of those. So like, even if CU is completely healthy, like let's say everyone was healthy, right? They're still probably going to be underdogs in this game. And last I checked, they're right around touchdown dogs at home. You throw these injuries into the mix. That's something to keep an eye on. One guy, let me check. I don't think he's on the injury report, but he didn't play in the second half against Wyoming. Offensive lineman Jordan Seaton. That's definitely something to keep an eye on as well. I believe he came out in street clothing. Looked like he tweaked his ankle there a little bit as well. So that's something to monitor.
Yeah, Jordan, I think it was an ankle or hammy, but yeah, I mean, highest graded pass blocker in the country.
First round pick. Let me say that too.
He's a first round lock. First round lock for sure. Yeah, Colorado's 6.5 point favorites, so you got that there.
Favorites or dogs?
Excuse me, underdogs.
Okay, I was gonna say, whoa.
Yeah, underdogs. No, sorry. But yeah, I think it gets a little bit concerning when you just think of how physical this BYU team was last year in that Alamo Bowl. I think the combination of physicality, defensive alignment. I saw the video, and I knew it was going to circulate again. The video of Shador and Travis on the bench with Shador going, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, right? Like, that's how good BYU's defense is. And Colorado fans, don't get butthurt, right? Stanford's head coach, and I used to cover Stanford. Frank Reich is currently their head coach. He's a former NFL coach. Very solid NFL coach, might I add. And he was getting confused at what BYU was doing, right? BYU loves to confuse the offense. And so Kaden Salter is really going to have to stay true to his eyes. He's going to have to make plays with his legs. And I think he's going to have to go like Superman to win this game, because Colorado's strengths and BYU's weaknesses, they sort of align in the wrong ways. And we'll talk about that, but we're going to take a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Mazda. Now, if you're not familiar with Mazda, it's time to get familiar because they bring everything you need in a car, right? So it's about redefining. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Kaden Salter's deep bomb touchdown to Joseph Williams. I just felt like that was like a coming of age touchdown for Kaden Salter. It was like, finally, this is the guy we've been waiting for. I think a lot of people had lost confidence in him, and I think he gained a lot of confidence with that throw. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making us your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, become a Locked On Buffs insider. Myself and former Buff Jordan Dominic, we do a film breakdown every week. It's really interesting to get his perspective on things. It's fun to sort of see, because there's a lot of times when you're watching football and you're like, why didn't this guy do that? And it's like, well, maybe that's not his job for that play, right? So a lot of complexities that Jordan's able to break down for us. AP is joining me. AP, let's just get right into it. BYU, number 2 total defense in the country. That's going to be tough. BYU, really good at running the ball. Colorado, not so good at stopping the run. Which of those sort of concerns you the most, and why?
Oof. I mean, it's hard for me to pick one. I think because of the injuries, I'm more so concerned about Colorado's ability to stop the run. And I forget the statistic off the top of my head, but Colorado does not tend to lose games when they score 30 plus points. So if they're able to run up the score, you're talking about Kaden Salter, maybe that lightning in a bottle type of moment with him with that touchdown pass to Joseph Williams. Like, if Colorado's offense is able to keep pace with BYU, I think they're going to be able to hang around in this game. But I'm concerned, not necessarily because of the talent, but because of the injuries that Colorado is dealing with on defense, that BYU might shoot out to a 14-zip lead early in this game or 10-zip, and Colorado with an offense that's still trying to find its identity. I know Coach Prime doesn't like that word, but still trying to find what works best for them on a play-in, play-out basis and whatnot. I guess I'm concerned about Colorado's ability to stay up in a track meet, right? Because you saw them blow out Delaware. Pretty good showing against Wyoming, but I think you and I are both in agreement that BYU is in a class above that of multiple classes above Delaware, and certainly a class above Wyoming. So we shall see, but I definitely think the injuries with the defense cause for some concern with BYU's running game.
Yeah, the thing I'm circling is the running or the rushing attack versus Colorado's run defense, right? Colorado's averaging, I think they're giving up around 200 yards of rushing per game, which isn't great, right? Even in the win against Wyoming had a back go for over a buck, right? He was doing good, 6 yards per carry. And I think BYU is one of those teams where they play methodical. They will, if they get up early, it's going to be like that Houston third quarter where Houston just ran the ball and sort of had the ball for 13 minutes in that one quarter, and Colorado had the ball for like all of 55 seconds or whatever it was, right? Like, if BYU gets up early, Colorado, it's going to be hard for them to get the ball back, right? Because Colorado has not had an easy time getting off the field at times, and BYU's rushing attack, we've been gassing it up all day. Like, if they get into a position where they could just turn around and hand the ball off, like, it's going to be easy for them, right? That's sort of the problem that you find yourself in. Like, if you're Colorado, and this is a problem dating back to even the Shador and Travis teams, you can't start slow, right? Like, you were talking about, like, say they start 14-0, they start down 14-0. It's like, okay, if that happens, it's going to be a problem because you have to stop BYU, which is going to be difficult. And then you have to be able to capitalize on a defense that's ranked number 2 in the country. Granted, and I joked about this before we were airing, BYU hasn't really played anybody, and I think that's why they're kind of vulnerable in a way, because this is the best team they played thus far. But if they're able to execute, then it's going to be difficult. Let's talk about that narrative, right? Because BYU has played their opponents, and their 3 wins are combined 3-9, right? They've played Portland State, who is 0-4. Stanford is 1-3, and the best team they played record-wise is East Carolina, who's 2-2. Do you see any glimmer of hope with this sort of being like we're not playing a group of 5 or glorified group of 5 program?
I think it definitely factors into it. If you're Colorado, you're much more battle tested, you would imagine, than BYU is at this point, specifically now, entering into conference play, right? I mean, Houston, tough loss, but that theme, right? They got down 10-zip in that first quarter, played a little bit better as the game went along before things fell apart for them. Wyoming last week, I know it's Mountain West, but some familiarity there. And obviously opening the season against Georgia Tech, who's maybe going to be better than we all thought, at least I thought, entering into this season as well. So Colorado is much more battle tested. And that's why I think it's imperative that if Colorado wants to go out and get this home upset victory, they've got to get out to a quick start. Maybe you do catch BYU snoozing a little bit. Maybe BYU, does look at the injury report and says, oh, we got this. We got our guy in our rushing attack that can get us a first down damn near every play, right? So I think getting out to that quick start, you're going to have to put the pressure on BYU, because if you allow them to settle into their game, then you're playing catch up. And we'll talk about the offense, and we'll talk about Kaden Salter and company. I'm not sure how built they are to play catch up in that sense. And obviously you want to always play with a lead and whatnot. But I think in this game in particular, and frankly, Kevin, I think this is a gut check type of game. You and I were talking before the show, how many games are they going to win this year? You win this game, you give yourself confidence and momentum moving forward. You lose this game, people start wondering, okay, like, when do you hand it off to Juju, and do you use this as a developmental year? So I think getting out to that quick start, specifically on defense, but also getting Kaden Salter in rhythm, is imperative for a win for CU.
Yeah, and I think Colorado, the little, if you look to the side here, everyone, our little segment topic is called Exposed. I think they exposed themselves and how quickly they panicked this year when they benched Kaden Salter, basically after the first game, right? He started against Delaware, but they had the whole 2-drive thing for everybody, and then Ryan Staub took over. I think had they not done that, I would trust them more, right? I think had they rode with Kaden Salter through Delaware, through Houston and like he had been playing for a month now, it'd be like, okay, this offense has the identity that you kind of like joked about Coach Prime doesn't like, right? They have that established quarterback that he also doesn't really like to talk about, right? Like, I think Colorado has really pigeonholed themselves to like, we're still figuring this out. And it was before the Wyoming game. Coach Prime said that they were hoping to find their identity against Wyoming, if not in the couple weeks after. And I said immediately after he said that, finding your identity against BYU, TCU, and Iowa State, who are all in the top 25, and Utah is the next game after that, and I think they will be back in the top 25. It's not easy. It's not easy to form your identity against some of the best teams in the country. And so we're going to see how far along they are with their identity. I think they're treating that Wyoming game as like a breakout game for Kaden Salter, as they should. But what does that mean? Like, is Kaden Salter going to be the guy we saw against Wyoming? Are they going to trust him? Are they going to give him the leash, right? Because I'm going to tell you right now, everyone, there's going to be moments where Colorado's offense looks frazzled because BYU's defense frazzles everyone, right? Do they trust Kaden Salter enough to be like, okay, figure it out, we're going to ride with you regardless? Or are they going to have a short leash on him? What do you think? Like, do you think they're going to start this quarterback thing again? Because as soon as you do it again, it's a problem. Like, it is a legitimate problem.
Yeah, I think you have to be certain that Kaden Salter is not the guy for you long-term this season if you're going to open up that can of worms. Just because I think Ryan Staub, in that Delaware game, you liked what you saw in spurts, but then with the full opportunity against Houston, not so much. So I do think that Kaden Salter being sent to the bench was a little bit of a wake-up call for him. And I think what I'm most optimistic about, I should say, with Kaden Salter is for the first time against Wyoming, we saw that dual threat nature that we were all sold on when he I don't know what he's a grad transfer or whatever, when he came to Colorado after playing at Liberty. And I think you saw a guy in Kaden Salter that played confident. I mean, that first touchdown pass to Amarion Miller was an absolute laser. Like where has that been the first 3 weeks? Like, that's what I was kind of wondering, right? So you saw the version of Kaden Salter that we were all sold upon entering into this season. Now, hopefully that bodes well for him. You want to see him use the legs and whatnot. I mean, that was on display in that game against Wyoming as well. So I'm of the belief that it's Kaden Salter's job until it isn't. And you better be sure. I shouldn't speak for coach, but like if I'm coach, right? Like if I'm making the move off of Kaden Salter, I got to be 100% confident that it's for the right reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if I'm Kaden Salter, I sort of see this as an opportunity to like prove a lot of people wrong, right? Like, I don't think he'll have. I mean, who knows? The season's there's still a lot of season to play, but like, I don't know if he's like in that Heisman like ability to where he could get back into the race or whatever. But I sort of viewed him as a guy with Heisman potential had everything gone right away. And you could sort of put on that cape and be that guy for Colorado. Like Shedeur did it. And I'm not saying he has to be Shedeur, but he could be his own version of that, where it's like, okay, we have Kaden Salter. We could count on him. And one of my predictions before the season, AP, was Kaden Salter would be Deion Sanders' first 100-yard rusher. And he came within 17 yards last year because they've yet to have a 100-yard rusher of the Coach Prime era. And he came within 17 yards last week. I almost said last year, I think, last week. And I do think that this would be the game to sort of use your legs a lot, right? Because BYU is going to get pressure on you. They're going to try to confuse you. So when in doubt, I'd rather him take off and run rather than force a throw. Because let me tell you, BYU's got some corners, right? This BYU team, which it's weird because we look back at last season. It's like they played in the Alamo Bowl. They weren't that good. BYU was not blowing a game against Kansas away from playing the Big 12 title game and then probably playing in the playoffs. So very good team. They return a lot of those guys. They have dogs all over. Chase Roberts, Kavana Tasu in the middle. I probably butchered his name, but the Utah transfer, really good. They have some dogs. So we're going to talk about the key to taming those dogs. How do they beat them? But first, we're going to take a quick break. This episode, it's brought to you by our sponsors over at DoorDash. Guess what? Who's delivered? It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Buffs, I mean, you got to go with Kaden Salter, right? Almost 400 yards of total offense. Huge touchdown pass to Joseph Williams. Ices the game with a big rushing touchdown of his own. When the pressure was on, Kaden Salter came through like no hesitation, no delay. And you've been watching throughout his career, it's no fluke. So we want to see more of that Kaden Salter. So it's DoorDash, right? They do everything that you want. And just like Kaden Salter delivered for the Buffs, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you could save every Saturday. Your order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, period, through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by our sponsors over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine and 17, let me say that again, bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs, the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugars and 0 crashes. That's why I love it. What I love most, aside from the 0 crashes part, is how portable they are. It's a big taste and a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get the boost you need. So enough with the boring flavorless caffeine. It's time to get your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the flavors you love or be bold and try something new in store online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making us your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You'll see both me and AP tomorrow night. It's another late one, of course, but we don't mind. We'll be up, right? Like we'll be up after those late night games, and we're going to give you our breakdown. We're going to talk about what we're right, what we're wrong. Before we can do that, we could talk about what Colorado could do to win, because I think the hard part about this game is you look at the numbers and everything points you in the direction of like BYU is the better team, or at least BYU is the more established team right now, right? They've had an easier schedule leading up to this moment. Outside of Bear Bachmeyer, who's a true freshman that I talked about him with Locked On Cougars, Jake Hatch. He joined the team in fall camp and has just been nothing short of a star for them. He's a super genius, went to Stanford. His brother Tiger's on the team and graduated from Stanford in like 2 years. Like they're a smart family. So it's no shock that he's able to figure out the system this quick, but veteran team around him. They don't ask him to do much, but I do think there's a lot of this notion of like, okay, how much will BYU win by? Like how much is BYU going to win by? It's like, okay, Colorado can win this game. They are a capable team. And so let's go back and forth. We'll do 2 keys each. What's your first key to victory?
I think my first thing is the guy who we talked about, Kaden Salter, because I think what we saw from the offense last week against Wyoming is what this offense was supposed to be entering into this season. And frankly, it was taking shots down the field. So it's not just Kaden Salter, it's also opening up that playbook a little bit with Pat Shurmur. I mean, even last year when you had Shedeur and Travis, they weren't necessarily a team that would just, go on these lengthy drives and drain the clock and score touchdowns and whatnot. They would hit you in spurts. Big play down the field to Travis, big play down the field to Draylon Miller, big play down the field to the other big receivers they had last year. So I think it's getting Kaden Salter confident, but also going for those chunk plays, going for those home run balls, because that'll also build up his confidence along the way. So I don't want to see CU come out and run these basic scripted bubble screens and mesh concepts like they do over and over again. Take some shots down the field. That's where I'll start.
If I see a bubble screen on that first play of the game, I might just turn the TV off. I might.
It's coming, Kev. It's coming.
I might do it. First key of the game for me is you got to limit the run game, right? I'm not going to be crazy and be like LJ Martin, 10 yards rushing. Like, let's be realistic. He's averaging 8 yards per carry. The biggest problem he's had throughout his career is health, and he's fully healthy by all accounts. And without Moa, the other running back, they're going to lean on him, right? You have to figure out a way to either make this a game defensively where running the ball is not an option, or where running the ball just isn't as effective as it has been for them, right? Because I do think Colorado has the guys. They just haven't executed. So slow down LJ Martin, make your life easier, get off the field on third downs. Don't allow BYU to get into those 3rd and 2. Like AP said earlier, when he runs the ball, he's a spit away from a first down, right? Make him like a throwaway, right? Make it 3rd and I'd rather it be 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 compared to 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, right? Where Wyoming did it this past week. They put their former quarterback at Wildcat. He's a tight end now, which was probably the biggest Wildcat quarterback I've ever seen. 6'5", like 250. Like they just powered him through. Houston did the same thing, right? They'd get into those short yardage situations, run the ball with Connor Wigman or Dean Connors. So don't allow BYU to run the ball all over you. You got to limit them in some capacity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just kind of get them off their A game, get them off plan A, force them to go plan B, plan C, and hope that while they're adjusting to those plans, you're able to run up the score, which is, why my second reason that I would go with here is you got to win that turnover battle, man. You've got to try to shorten this game. You've got to keep BYU's offense off the field as much as possible, knowing the deficiencies you're dealing with because of the injuries on the defensive line. So, DJ McKinney is a guy that I'm very, very high on. I think he could be a real player in the NFL. He's had arguably the toughest job in college football last season with Travis Hunter on the other side. So I'm looking at him, a guy who's played under Coach Prime for a couple of years now, to come out there, make a play, help set the tone for this team on defense. And I think if you get a takeaway or two, albeit a fumble or an interception, and that results in 7, 10-esque points, that's going to go a long way in winning this game. So I think you gotta punch first on offense with Kaden Salter, but you've also got to try to make life a little bit miserable for BYU when they have the ball on offense.
Yeah, Bear Bachmeier, I don't think he's thrown a pick yet, right? We haven't seen him have to face adversities. Like if you pick him off, who knows? He might combust, right? He might get a little shaky, he might get a little quick feet in the pocket. So that can make life difficult for the Buffs. My final point, you just got to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers, right? Sincere Brown was clocked. It was like 22 miles per hour on that touchdown. The only person faster, I think he might have tied him, was Nick Harbor of South Carolina, who's a legitimate track star. So get the ball in the hands of your playmakers, right? Sincere Brown, yards after the catch, monster, right? DeKalen Taylor is a guy who's injured, but someone like Draylon Miller, Omarion Miller, find a guy in open space, let them make plays for you. So that way it takes pressure off of Kaden Salter having to be a superhero. Even though I said I want him to be a superhero, it takes pressure off of him having to do that. It takes pressure off your defense if you can move the ball down the field without going 3 and out every time. So AP, final key goes to you. What do you think?
Oh man, it's hard, right? Because on paper, I do think that BYU is just the better team on paper. Like to your point, but I think what we've talked about, maybe there's that element of surprise, the turnover battle in Kaden Salter. I think, kind of bring it all together. It comes down to the play calling as well. Like that is, I think, like a lot of people, as frustrated as they've been with the offensive CU throughout the course of the season, it seems like a lot of that frustration has been pointed towards the play caller. And I had the opportunity to talk to Coach or ask Coach Prime a question in his post-game press conference after the win against Wyoming. And I basically asked, because Pat Shurmur, I believe it was after the Delaware game, said, sometimes offenses tend to stall out of the gate in college football because there's no preseason. So I kind of reiterated that question to Coach Prime and said, hey, a handful of games in, you got some big chunk plays tonight. Do you believe, that has any impact on your offense? And I shouldn't say he completely disagreed with me, but he was like, no. Like we have the talent. We have guys that just have to do their job. I have to be better in practice and getting the most out of our practice sessions. So with that, I don't think it's ever been a question about talent with this Colorado Buffaloes team. And I think that feeds into the turnovers, that feeds into Kaden Salter. But most importantly, I think a key to victory is getting these coaches on the same page, in tune with their players and their heartbeat on the field. So I'm looking at Pat Shurmur. I'm obviously looking at Robert Livingston on defense to make adjustments as needed. I think if the coaching staff matches the energy we're hoping to see from the players on the field, they can absolutely win this game. Yeah,
the upset potential is there. I think offensively, to add to your point, get a little tricky. Right. Yeah. Joseph Williams, he played quarterback in high school. Maybe give him a little throw, right? Draylon Miller hasn't been the most consistent catching the ball. Maybe use him as a running back. I don't know. Do something, right? You got to spice it up to win games like this. And I think Colorado's capable of it. We'll just have to wait and see. AP, appreciate you hopping on. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on social media at Media by AP. You can check me out there on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram and TikTok as well. And then, of course, I'll be right here on the Locked On Buffs YouTube channel after the game. Should probably be like 1 a.m.-ish. So for all the sickos out there, hope you'll join me and we'll have a good time. Yeah, we'll both be going live sometime after the game. It'll be really dark. I can tell you that. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, and we will see you guys tomorrow evening.